Hi, everybody. Welcome to my December writing update. It has been a while since I've put out an episode for a couple reasons. I had two different cold sicknesses going through the house, and then Thanksgiving in between there. So the next episode has been a long time in coming. I guess no better way to start than with a writing update to tell you where I'm at. Unfortunately, with being sick, I've tried before to write when I've had a cold, sickness, flu, all of that, and I just can't do it. I've tried with the time just kind of spent in bed or laying around the house, and with my brain being foggy and cloudy, it just does not work. So the word count last month for the last couple weeks did not meet where I wanted to. But having said that, I am still on track at least to not finish quite where I wanted to, but still have room to finish my first draft for my first book, and leaving room for where I want to be on schedule for my second book. So, where am I at for word count on my first draft? I am just across the 70,000 word threshold, and I thought that I would probably end up around 130,000 words. I believe it'll probably be closer to 120 actually, which would put it around a little higher than 300 pages. Relatively short for what I want to do in the future, but because the story is so focused on a few characters and not extremely branching storylines like in some epic series I want to do in the future, as a standalone novel, this seems like a fairly good size that I want to do for my first book. One thing that kind of took me by surprise is I kind of saw as I was outlining that the last third of the book or so is kind of this big climax. It's not one chapter, even two chapters. It's kind of spread across a half a dozen or so chapters. And I'm really seeing that come to fruition now. Even though I still have another 50,000 words or so to go, I am kind of getting that extra wind towards, even though it's not the end of the book, I feel like it is because so many exciting things are happening. So it's really pushing me forward to write, maybe not faster, but just write a little bit more energetically while I'm finishing the first draft. So my initial target of having it done by the end of the year, just with the 2 straight weeks of being sick at the house, is going to extend until mid-January. I'm not going to try to cram it in by the end of the year. I don't want to get burnt out and stick to that. I'm okay pushing it back 2 or 3 weeks or so. Probably be by the third week in January that I finish the first draft. And then that still gives me 5 more months to finish the first draft of my second book, because I'll be getting to that right afterwards. Give myself maybe a week or two break, and then have the first draft of the second book done by the end of June. Speaking of my second book, where am I at with the outlining for it? So I have about 5 chapters to go of my detailed outline. If you haven't checked it out, I've already started some podcast on my writing process. I don't know if I made an episode on this yet. I don't think I have, but I'm going to go into detail on how I outline my books. I kind of have a general outline where I do a high level outlook of how I want the chapters laid out to get me from the beginning to the end of the book. Then I go through that and really make a detailed outline for each chapter. So I've already made the detailed outline for the second book quite a while ago, and I'm getting through the detailed outline portion of it. That means that once January comes around and I have this first draft finished for my first book, after taking a week or two break in between, I will be ready to go, starting on my second book. And at the same time of working on the first draft for my second book, I'll be working on the second draft for my first book. That may seem like a lot. However, having a variety, I think, it's just going to be easier to go back and forth and be able to kind of reset my mind and have a refresher rather than doing the same thing day in and day out. So really, I'll be working on 3 or 4 books at essentially at some point. Once I get to that third or fourth book, it'll really be working on drafting one book, the first draft of another, the second or third draft of yet another, and then for the first book in that cycle, finishing up any final touches or drafts on it. I would rather do it this way, I think, rather than doing one at a time. I feel like that there would be too much space in between. For example, once I'm done with my second draft of this first book, I'll be sending out to a few people to read over. And during that time, I suppose that during that, I don't know, couple months, however long it takes for them to get back to me and, to a spot where I'm happy with it, I guess I could be working on touching it up too, or that I could spend that time outlining for my following book, but it just seems like there's too much variability there, and I want more consistency than anything. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the plan for right now. All right, that went a lot into planning rather than a true update. So let me get back to updating. That's pretty much it for the first and second books. They're on track, except for that little delay with being sick. But in the grand scheme of things, it won't really matter too much. On track to finishing up in a reasonable time. Excited about that. I'm excited to start my second book as well. For the first book, one thing too, just an update. I didn't know what I wanted to do with languages in my book. This will be its own podcast too, to kind of go into episode to go into detail on how I'm doing this. But I decided to make the very bare bones of a fantasy language for my book. When I say bare bones, I mean basically the essentials, where words make sense, what people say makes sense in their own language, and you as a reader can read it and feel involved that it is a real world with a real language to it, because I am making it with that. I am not a linguist. Like, I didn't go to school for English, and I didn't study etymology, so I'm definitely not a language expert. However, I've spent some time the last few months just studying again that surface level of what makes a language, and doing all the research for that. And I'm still not an expert on it, and maybe not even quite at the novice level, but I know the at least the bare enough fundamentals where I can make words that are consistent together, and their sounds, what they mean. And so that's kind of, I spent a decent amount of time last month. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I want to spend more time on my writing, outlining, map drawing, rather than the language, because in the end, that's what's going to matter more. But I do want to make as realistic a world as I can, and just having that fantastic language be a part of the race that's in my first book will go a long way. Not just as you as the reader to get involved with it and be reeled in, but for me as the writer, especially with Token being kind of my fantasy hero in a way, it just kind of rubbed off on me, and I think that it's a good direction to go to. Well, that is everything for my December update. Not too much, wanted to keep it short and sweet, but everything is pressing on and going well. The next update in January, I should be very much nearing the end of the first draft for my book, and looking forward to some kind of announcements on what I want to do with plans for releasing my books. Hopefully next month I'll bring those out. So thank you for watching. If you haven't, please like this video, subscribe, share, comment. Go to my website too. The link will be in the description. You can contact me there. You can sign up for my newsletter. So definitely get involved if you want to hear more, and you want us to support the channel and support me. Thank you, and I will see you next time.